Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Against All Odds. My name is Daniel and I will be your host. Before I introduce our guests for this week, I'd like to say a very big thank you to everyone who has liked, shared, and subscribed since we released our maiden episode a few days ago. The feedback has been encouraging, and I'd like to say that it'll be good for you to continue to support us, because there's a need for this kind of platform. The people that we'll be bringing to you have been carefully selected, for their success, their progress in life, their philanthropic activities, and so much more. And we're just trying to empower the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic cohort, with inspirational stories. And the journey so far has been very interesting, and it'll be good to see how far this goes. Anyway, I'd like to introduce our guest for this week. Someone I've known for many, many, many years. Actually used to be my neighbor until a few years ago. And he's my golfing buddy. Many, many early morning rounds of golf. But he's in the person of Mr. Akwaboah. Peter is a Global Chief Operating Officer for Technology for Morgan Stanley, the investment bank, Wall Street investment bank. And he's also the head of innovation for Morgan Stanley globally. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Peter Akwaboah. So Peter, you've had a very interesting career path, from representing the United Kingdom in triple jump of all sports to your current role as a managing director and global head of technology and innovation at Morgan Stanley. Tell us about your journey.
Thanks first of all, thanks Daniel for doing this. And let me say hi to everybody. So I'm currently, as you said, the Chief Operating Officer for our technology for Morgan Stanley, and also the Head of Innovation. But honestly, my journey began in the UK, born here, spent some time here, and then grew up in Ghana. And I did my, what we call the O levels. I don't know these days how you call it here, but it's GCSEs. And then I came back to do the A levels, so call it 2 years before university. So I did that, and I did my last 2 years here. And then I went to University of Birmingham, where I studied engineering. And then from there, I thought I'd be an engineer, but then for some reason I started enjoying the intersection between engineering and writing software. So I ended up starting my career with IBM, writing software, and then I grew up through IBM, working for some consulting firms, and then ended up working for investment banking firms, and currently having worked in the UK, in Asia. I'm currently based in the US, and as you said, I am the Chief Operating Officer for Technology and Head of Innovation for Morgan Stanley.
Well, Peter, that's very interesting, because I met you at Lehman Brothers back in the day, long time ago.
You're showing our age.
I know. And it's quite interesting, because you said you started off in engineering, and you sort of made that transition to IT. Did you teach yourself to write software? Was it something that came to you naturally? What made you what made you sort of successfully manage that transition?
I think I got lucky because first of all, when I was doing when you do engineering and you probably do structural engineering, you end up writing software. So I got a little bit lucky by being introduced to software, and I took an interest in that. And so that's how things evolved. And then I ended up writing software for kind of designing bridges and also highways. But the thing about whether it's software or anything else, it's all about, I genuinely believe that people can do anything they want to do.
Okay.
It's just putting your mind to it. And we all have basic skills in life. But the core of what you do, when you put your mind to it, you can do pretty much anything you want to do. So in my case, as an engineer and software came, I took a passion to it. I put my mind to it, and I ended up working with IBM, and the rest is history.
Okay. So, how then did you transition into investment banking?
Yeah, good question. So, look, I think my story is very straightforward. At some point, I said to myself that I needed to prioritize cash, making money. But you know, the interesting thing is that everybody has a goal in life, and you have to pick a goal in life.
Okay.
When you pick the goal in life, the journey to get there is the same. You still have to plan your life. You still have to work out who you're going to speak to influence and all that kind of stuff. So in my case, my journey was I need to make some money.
Okay.
And the reason why I said I need to make some money was that every time I went out with my friends, as you say, some of them were Lehman Brothers in different places. They would take the taxi home, the black cab home, and I would take the night bus. So I said to myself, this can't be the case. After 3 or 4 times, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to do exactly what you're doing, because we're all working for banking.
Okay.
So in the end, I said, okay, I'm going to try and have a go at investment banking. But that's just having a vision.
Okay.
But the journey to get there requires you to read about it, prepare, understand, try and talk to people, because at the end of the day, you have to find a goal. So in my case, I did my research and find out that people, I was working for IBM, people who were actually working in consultancy companies.
Okay.
And then I found one guy called Alan Greenwood. He was at the JP Morgan.
Okay.
And so I went to him, and he was the one who did the process.
Excellent. Excellent. So once you got into investment banking, how did you then find your niche? You know, and the reason I asked this is I did some research ahead of us sitting down, and it was a piece that was actually written about you on the Morgan Stanley website. And one thing that you said, or one that was said in that piece, was that when you came back to the United Kingdom, I mean, you were born in the United Kingdom, you spent a bit of time in Ghana, came back, and you were a sportsman in Ghana. But one of the things that you noticed when you came back here was that you were not able to compete at the same level as the people that you were training with here. So you took a decision to focus on triple jump, and just that. My question to you today is there any parity in your thought process, about choosing specific things, to sort of use as a vessel to progress your career? So obviously you went into investment banking. Investment banking has so many arms to it. You could have gone into trading, you could have been so many things. How did you end up in the operations space and IT space? I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting because it doesn't matter what you do. For me, I ended up following what some of my friends were doing, right? Because they were all in investment banking, but in largely in technology and operations.
Okay.
Right? And so I ended up talking to them about what they're doing, what they enjoy out of it, what are the areas that they think why is it challenging for them. And interestingly, when I then went into banking, most of the areas that I went to was within that area in terms of IT and operations. So my one-on-one priority was to spend time understanding the banking industry. And for me, it doesn't matter which part of the banking industry you are. You have to understand the fundamentals of banking. So I spent a lot of time building relationships, and relationships are so important. I always say, having looked back, the way I would describe things is a 2 hours, relationships and results. So I depends on building relationships simply because I didn't know banking. So when you build relationships and people trust you, they will teach you banking. And so people were teaching me banking. And but at the same time, they also have to trust that you deliver the results. Because then when they're teaching you and you're getting the results, then the combination is perfect. There's more trust, they're prepared to do more. So for me, I fell into IT and ops because of the friends, but once I got in there, I made sure that I spent time deepening that, and then results, and relationship becomes a key part.
Excellent. One thing I know about you as well, you have a doctorate. Quite interesting. So you're a very intelligent person, and do you think education has a part to play in a person's success in their career or their career progression? Do you think it has helped with the fact that you've obviously engineering and then you did a master's as well?
Yeah. So I think this is an interesting question. I think the definition of education is very wide.
Okay.
But generally, I think that when I look back, education is important, and the reason why it's important is that it's almost like gives you a level playing field in terms of, for in my case, how to think logically. In my case, how to work under pressure, how to prepare for exams and the rest. So it's not the content that I think about, but it's the environment and so forth. The environment of networking, the environment of being around people who are aspiring to achieve something in life, the environment of spending time with professors and lecturers who are accomplishing your life. Those kind of the environment created helps you and propels you to define something that prepares you for the industry, whatever the industry is. And I will not advocate to say the industry means that you have to go and work for someone, but it prepares you for the industry. On the flip side, I think personal education alone is not what propels me. I think education coupled with my sports, because in sports you're also being educated, right? And you're being educated on how to compete at a very early age, how to deal with adversity, how to work in a team, to realize that in some cases when you're competing for England, you're competing for points. And when you're competing for points, it's all for the team. So how to work as part of the team, how to be able to work with your coach and build a relationship with your coach. All these things teach you and makes you well-rounded for the industry. So the combination of education and my sports did that. Now, for certain people, they may not be necessarily the most sportiest people. It doesn't mean that they don't have other skills. You can have skills in music, you can have being an artist, whatever it is. You just need to perfect it to the best of your ability, and you'll be very surprised what it gives you. So I think it's a combination of both that I have benefited from.
Another thing I've noticed about you, obviously, we've known each other for many years, is your ability to spot opportunities, and to take those opportunities when they come up. I mean, even in your career at Morgan Stanley, I think that the article that I did the research reading on about yourself, it mentioned the fact that in the course of your career you had been able to help the bank to take a part in certain opportunities that came up, some bond raising and all that kind of stuff. So can you just tell us, how do you go about spotting these opportunities?
Yeah, I think it comes from my mindset. My mindset is not about doing a job. My mindset is about a career.
Okay.
And you can either have a job, which means you just go to work 9 to 5, you do your job and go home, or you can have a career. And when I think about having a career, it means that I think about why we exist. Okay, so why do I work for Morgan Stanley? I work for Morgan Stanley because it fundamentally serves its clients. Okay. To service its clients, it has to provide product innovation and then provide talent within the organization, and that then pull all the things together to be able to service its client. And so when I think about it that way, I think about what value can I bring to the organization from a career point of view.
Okay.
And so when I think about the value, I spend time understanding where's the organization, what are my strengths, what are the strengths beyond just my day job. And then when I look to that and I find opportunities, I take it to the firm. And so I don't stick to the fact that I have a job. I stick to the fact that I am there to provide a service and value to Morgan Stanley and ultimately to our shareholders and so forth.
Okay.
So that's kind of my mindset.
Okay.
Right? Whilst other people are there just to do a job.
Okay.
And so they will start, the job's finished, they go home. They come back the next day, same thing. And for me, that is just a job. If you want a career and you want to focus on your adding value, then you have to think differently.
So my question to you, if you can, is, can you just explain how you managed to get to the level that you are now? Because you've got several tens of thousands of people who kind of work in your outfits. Not directly reporting to you, obviously, but your scope of responsibility is, I don't know, 20,000 people worldwide.
In the zip code of Morgan Stanley is 80,000, and we have quite a large tech organization.
Yeah, I mean that's just phenomenal. And to think that you're a person of a black background, and you've managed to get to that level. What unique attributes do you think helped you to navigate the path?
Yeah, I think I don't consider myself to have a unique attribute. I consider myself as whatever attribute I have, most people have it as well. But I've been lucky in life to have people that I have not been envious, but I have learned from. Right? Because my thing is, when I see friends who are successful, I try to learn from them. Other people trying to be very envious about them. I'm not in that camp. So I've learned from a number of people. But honestly, the thing that there's three things that I always do, and it doesn't matter at what level. And I was taught that much earlier in life. And it was basically saying, you need to define the house that you need to build and live in. Okay. And the way it was described to me, and this is what I practice, is that a house has three parts to it: the foundation, the structure, and the roof. Okay. And if you try and score out of 10, the foundation is 3 out of 10, the structure is 3 out of 10, and then the roof is 4 out of 10. Okay. So all you're trying to do is get points on each system to try and get to 10. The foundation is about doing your job properly, the authenticity and the competence of your whatever job you're doing. Because if you're a doctor and you're not, and you're a surgeon, and you're not very good at operating, that's your job. Right. If you're in banking and you have to make payments, and you're not very good at making payments, that's a problem. If you have to write a software, you're not very good at writing the software, that's a problem. So your day job is paramount. It's a foundation, and it's like a house. If you don't build a right foundation, it doesn't matter how beautiful the house is, it's going to collapse. So that's the first thing. So if you do it properly, then you're likely to get 3 out of 10. Only 3 out of 10. Okay. The next one is your structure, and the structure is basically the approach that you take to do your job. Okay. When you walk down the road, the difference between turning left to look at a beautiful house or turning right is all about the style and the approach that one uses to execute their foundation. And so, are you the sort of person who picks up the phone all the time or hide behind emails? Are you the sort of person who goes to meetings and prepare well in advance of the meetings? Are you the sort of person when they give you feedback, you take the feedback on board and then work out how you're going to adjust? Or are you the sort of person who goes, I don't believe in this feedback? Okay. Right. So it's what is your approach and what is your style is what defines you, and it becomes quite important in terms of defining your structure. And if you do it well, people get to see it, and hopefully you get another 3 points out of it. Okay. Right? So now we're into 6 points. Okay. So you're trying to pick points as you go along. Okay. Then the roof is where I don't think most people spend time on. But guess what? When you're at home, you don't really spend time on the roof. But the roof is where, in the corporate world or whatever, you have to spend more time as well, which is about your broader influence. So you asked me a question about my contribution beyond just my day job, and I told you about my career, the broader influence. Are you just doing your day job, or you have a broader influence in society? Do you give back to society? How much do you network and build relationships, authentic relationships? How much do you use your experience to give back and coach others? It's all about your broader experience, and the more you do, the more it becomes very rewarding, because really you become a franchise person. You start thinking about how to add value beyond your day job, and then you build the relationships and the rest that helps you grow your career and so forth. If you do it well, you get 4 points. You see, the other ones are 3-3. That one is 4 points. But that's where we don't spend all the time. So you end up losing points. Because if you're going to do 3-3 and get 6 out of 10, and you do 0 up there, 6 out of 10.
Right.
So for me, defining the house you want to live and live in is how I do working, and it's how I live my career.
Okay.
Trying to get points on each one.
Okay. Excellent. That's very insightful.
Yeah.
So I also know that your career has taken you all over the world, from England to Singapore
Yeah.
to Malaysia, or
Working in the whole of Asia.
the whole of
And
Asia,
then, but I spent some time in India before.
in India as well.
India before, and now of course in the US. Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, it's quite interesting. But one thing I know about you as well is that anytime I message you, whatever time of day it is, I live in England, and I normally get a response back, and I know that you're often in strange time zones and whatever. How do you balance a very hectic global multinational career, with being able to respond, to social messages, just like I might just message you, Peter, how are you doing? What's going on? Whatever it is. You seem to manage to juggle many balls. How are you able to do that?
Yeah. First of all, I don't advocate to not have enough sleep, because you need enough sleep.
Okay.
But relationships are results. Right? And the way I define my life is about focusing on less amount of people in my social network, but become very deep and authentic with it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And so you're one of them in the
Oh,
network,
thank you.
right? And so because you're one of them in the network, it's important to me. And I save in other areas to allow me to do things. So the places I save is I rarely write emails.
Okay.
I think emails, my view, emails, whilst good, I think waste so much time. I think it's easy for me to pick up the phone and have a 1 minute conversation than to spend time constructing email, reading over and fixing. And so I try to adjust my life and save time where I can, and then repurpose those for what I believe are authentic relationships. Because if I can pick up the phone and speak to you, or if I can see you face to face and have a conversation, I achieve the same effect of building relationships with other people at the same time achieving results. So that's how I spend my time. So to answer your question, I go narrow and deep, and within those narrow and deep, I make sure that it's quite authentic in being very clear and optimizing my time as much as and achieving it. I don't believe that you can separate work and life. I don't believe that. I think you can adjust as you go along. Sometimes one is getting too much, you have to slow down, and the other one comes up. But I think work and life is commingled. You'll spend like 10 hours in the office and the rest. It's commingled. You just have to know when things are getting too much on one side and then adjust it back. But if the other one's getting too much, then you adjust it. That's just the way of life.
So one thing that I picked up when we were having dinner last night was you're very passionate about helping people, almost in fault. And for the many years I've known you, 20 plus years, you've always put yourself out there as a champion to help people to progress and to advance and to move on in life. What advice can you give to people of a Black, Asian, and minority ethnic background? What is your pet peeve? Why are we not having more Peterakwaboahs following in your footsteps? I don't know how many people of color sit on the Morgan Stanley board. Probably a bit more because it's in America. But what is your pet peeve? In this regard.
Yeah, first of all, my whole giving back, it starts with my parents. My mom was a midwife. At the age of 10, my brother and I were delivering babies.
Wow.
Right. Okay. Because she was a midwife, and sometimes you go to the village and there was no midwives there, and we just have to help out. And so it's been that way. My dad devotes his time to the Catholic Church. He's been knighted by the Pope. So you've grown up in an environment where giving back has been just a way of life. And so you pick it up and you feel like you have to follow the legacy and leave some legacy in life. By the way, I love it. So I'm okay with that. But I think to answer your question, I think in doing all these things, you pick up some themes in life that becomes a pet peeve. And I have three that I will do. The first one is the fact that everybody leaves investments too late, late, especially in our community, because they think they're not generating enough money. So why should they put $100 to one side? But savings and putting some money behind or whatever, and building some cushion from investment point of view, I think is paramount. And I want to encourage everybody that it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter how much you have. If you put things aside, you can think about your will, you can think about all these things. I think is key. So just taking care of your own financials and your investments and all that, I think is paramount. The second thing is that I get a lot of parents calling me saying, "Oh, my son is about to graduate, or my son just graduated and is looking for a job. Can you help?" And I get there and say, it's not about me helping. It's about me educating you about the fact that there is a system. And how do we get the kids through that system? The way you're about to graduate is a timing around when you apply for jobs and all that kind of stuff. And if you do that, right, then it helps us to be able to support the system and maybe coach you and guide you and all that kind of stuff to apply. But just to call to say, hey, find me a job, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
So there's something around educating in the environment where we know that it's fair, it's equitable, but you have to start early. Because the ones who are winning the job have started early, they applied early, got into the deadline, and then hopefully they have a chance of getting the job. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is really about, it doesn't apply to all, but a theme that I see around confidence and we grew up in an environment where, I always say this, we grew up in an environment where in most cases it was very autocratic.
Okay.
And then you get into the world which is very democratic. You have to fend for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to argue your case.
Yeah.
You have to do all these things.
Yeah.
And you get there and you realize the boss speaks. And you go, okay, that's not gonna work.
All right.
You have to have a point of view.
Okay.
And you have to be confident in expressing your point of view.
That's interesting.
Without necessarily being arrogant or anything.
Yeah.
But it's okay to express a point of view and put your arguments on the table. So I would encourage people that look the way we grew up.
Yeah.
Once you leave that behind the door, once you get into the corporate world,
the real world,
the real world is
you have to stand up for yourself.
Stand up for yourself, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
So that's what I would. What the three things.
Yeah. So moving on quickly, we're almost done anyway. So post George Floyd, there's a lot of talk about in the corporate world about trying to encourage people of a Black, ethnic, and Asian minority background, to progress, through the corporate structure and hopefully get to senior management level, because many companies found out that their senior management structure was not representative of the workforce. There was a bit of an initiative in some quarters along those lines, but then we even got the Darwin has a 10,000 Black interns program and all that. But is it really something that companies are committed to, or have we now moved on to Ukraine and it's something has slipped back into the background?
I think it's a good question. I think every crisis causes a renewed energy of activities. I do think that it's not just the George Floyd coupled with the pandemic.
Okay.
Change something which I think was a step change relative to what I've seen in the past. Because when you're at home and you can't go out, and you can't do anything for some time, the reflection and seeing the things that was happening in Florida, that reflection, I think, had a step change in how companies were thinking. So I don't know how the latest starts, but I've seen significant momentum. And then if you look at our own company, prior to all this, we were making progress, but not to the stage that I wanted to see. Right now, since George Floyd, we've actually set up something which is sustainable. If you're an organization and you want to do something, it has to be sustainable. If you look at giving back, the foundation board, right? So you put the money into the foundation, the foundation invests. If you look at sustainability, there'll be some sort of sustainability board, right? If you look at diversity and inclusion, there was no board, there was nothing.
Oh, okay.
Because company cultures and the rest, you have to create something which is sustainable. So you look at Morgan Stanley, we have something called Institute for Inclusion. Right? That is with our senior execs as well as external distinguished executives who actually come together as an advisory to advise the firm about some of the things that we have to do. And I feel like those are big shifts in corporate America and hopefully the world. And then you get into debates around should we have targets, should we have goals, and so forth. So, but it's all about transparency. There's been more transparency around publishing things. The regulators have been pushing to be able to provide a lot more transparency and convergence. So you see strong foundations being laid that were not there before. Right? Which hopefully will move it to a more of a sustained way, as opposed to the thing dies down and then nobody does that. So I'm more optimistic that we're seeing more progress. But to your point, it needs to move faster, because if it's not moving faster, at some point we lose the momentum, even though some of the structures are there. But I see a lot more progress than that.
That's good to know. I also happen to know you're a fitness fanatic. And you've got a weekly online session that you do with your friends all over the world and all that. How important is having a fitness regime to career progression in your mind?
Yeah, I just think I just think that you focus on your well-being, and I think these days well-being is such an important part of one's life. And so whatever I do, you define what is the one thing that helps your well-being. You find that when most people define the one thing that helps their well-being, it will be some sort of fitness. It will be some sort of, maybe going for a walk, maybe do meditations, it was something around that. I do think that fitness is not just by the gym. Fitness is about making basic adjustments in life. So, for example, when you go to work, when you go into meetings, you take the stairs, you do this, you make adjustments. When you sit down, you get up every 10 minutes to look around to get the blood flowing. Do you have a standing desk? It's just adjustments in life that helps the little things. But I genuinely believe that fitness coupled with well-being is an important part of one's environment, to clear your head a little bit and to think about how to think of your own well-being and fitness. So I think it's important.
Okay. And one last thing just before we go is the Gen Z generation that we currently have seem to struggle with waking up early, and I mean, both you and I are pretty much early birds, that we start our days pretty much before many others do. Do you think that it's a problem, or it will sort of hinder them in their career progression, especially with careers in the city, and stuff like that, which require an early morning start. I mean, I remember back in the day, when you were in England, you leave home 5 a.m., get to work by 6 o'clock, and recently I know of somebody who was helped to find a job, and got fired after a few months because they kept yawning, at 8 a.m. They didn't seem switched on and focused. What sort of advice can you give to our young people, about the importance of cultivating an early morning culture, as opposed to staying up late on social media, and struggling to start off your day?
Yeah, I think this is a very sensitive area because I'm quite progressive in life because
Okay.
I don't believe that hours or the time that you work is as important as the results and the value that you bring to the table. And so I think depending on the job you do,
Yeah.
and the environment,
Okay.
you have to be sensible, and you have to know the environment you work in,
Okay.
and decide what works for you.
Okay.
So if I go somewhere where everybody starts at 9 and I come in at 7, the problem. If I go somewhere where everybody starts at 6 and I come in at 9, it's a problem. So what is the culture that is in wherever you are, and how do you fit in within that culture? And if you want to be brave and go against the culture, by all means do so, but let your results show for itself, right? And build the trust, build the confidence, build these things. So I'm not there to prescribe one versus the other.
Okay.
But the thing that I know always works is when you focus on getting your results,
Okay.
and you focus on building a trusting relationship in an environment. I know that formula works. And if you can do that and still come into the work at 9, then so be it. But know the environment that you work in, and that is important. The last thing I would say is that I would like to learn from the Gen Zs as well, because sometimes it feels like we're advising the Gen Zs, and maybe they can start advising us about, because fundamentally they're being very successful, they're running businesses, they're doing other things that I wish I could do as well, which I haven't done. So what is within them? What's kind of their risk-taking measures?
Okay.
And how can I learn from it? So at some point, I also want to learn that as well.
And have you had any setbacks or adversities in your career?
Life in corporate career never is straightforward. And almost every cycle, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, I have setbacks. So I have had setbacks which is taking my career in one way, and so forth. But the thing I would say is resilience is important.
Okay.
And having a focus in mind on where you want to get to is important. But the setbacks will happen. I've had bosses that I didn't get on well with.
Really?
Yeah. And I've had bosses would come in and think, hey, your performance is not that great. You have to think about life. The thing I have learned from setbacks is, A, is not personal, and 2, make decisions in life.
Okay.
And there's only 2 decisions in my view is binary. In my view, is binary. You decide to stay, listen to feedback and change it, and take action within whatever you're doing, or you decide to leave. But don't sit on the fence and go and whine. It's not going to help you. Decide.
Okay.
The thing I've learned in life is decision making, and the speed of decision making is what saves you.
And the last question, I know you're a very generous person, and you're very sort of clued up with philanthropy. What philanthropic activities are you currently involved with?
Yeah, so a few. So I'm involved in a hospital in Ghana, Foundation of Orthopedics and Complex Spine.
Okay.
It provides really saves people, especially young children, with complex spine.
Yeah.
And the curvature is at an angle where it's crashing on people's heart, their lungs, and
Wow.
all sorts of things, and they're about to die.
Okay.
And so we help. We have a foundation, we have a charity foundation, and we help the hospital look after patients and let them survive in society. So that's one. The second one is I'm actually on the board of American Museum of Finance.
Okay.
Museum of American Finance, which is really preserving the financial industry
Okay.
and all its legacy, and using that to showcase and educate the next generation. So I'm on the board of that, and then at least I support my kids quite a lot because they've set up their own charity. It's called Soccer for Dreamers, and what they do is they're using my kids play. The three boys, they play soccer or football, as I say it.
Yeah.
But they then realize that again they're following the footsteps we're given, but
Yeah.
they realize that they're gifted. Well, they've been lucky to have all the kit and equipment that they need to be able to play the soccer. So they decided they want to give back to society.
Okay.
So they've set up a charity called Soccer for Dreamers, which is basically going around their friends and clubs and to say donate used kit.
Oh,
So they donate
okay.
used kit,
Yeah.
they send it to Africa, in this case, they've started in Ghana, and they basically donate it to kids. The whole dream around this is that some kid will find their niche through this, and then one day they can be playing at an international level because
Wow.
they have the facility that they need to do it.
Wow. That's very commendable. That's very commendable. So, how do people get involved in these charities if they want to help and support?
For Soccer for Dreamers, there's a website, www.soccerfordreamers.com. The Foundation of Orthopedic is www.focus.com,
Okay.
and you can look at that. And then, of course, Museum of American Finance, you just go and look for Museum of American Finance, MOFAF. You can find that as well. Yeah.
Peter, thank you very much for your
Yeah.
time and all these words of wisdom that you've shared with us. Really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure that there are many people out there who will benefit from your years of experience and years of wisdom. So thank you very much. And all the way from Portugal, I also hope that you find this session beneficial. And I hope that you will rise up in your career and become the best that you could ever be. So thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.
God bless you.